Welcome back to NewsMakers, Water this week, and we are with three members of the steering group from the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, Peter Townsend, Eugenie Sage and Ashburton Mayor Bede OMalley, who is the chairman of the steering group. All right, let's whip through a few other issues. First of all, the mother of all water wars would have to be, to date, Central Plains Water. I just wonder if, in hindsight, when you look back at it, and God knows where it's going to take us in the coming months, would you agree that it has really been a public relations disaster for larger scale irrigation? Or storage, or both?
It's not just a public relations disaster, and I think this is what the strategy is about, because it's highlighted the community conflict over water. But there hasn't been the consultation with the community in the early stages that would have shown that this was going to go where it has gone.
How do you think it's going to end up, Eugenie? What's your crystal ball saying?
The commissioners have said that indicated that their decision will be that the storage reservoir and the earth dam isn't going to go ahead, and they've asked for further evidence on the revised scheme involving the continued takes from the Rakai and the Waimakariri. So I think we have to wait and see what that evidence is, and the commissioners will make a decision on that. Sure.
It really has been a flashpoint between town and country, and quite polarising in many respects. Obviously you are very concerned about Canterbury's economic prosperity and outlook, and there is no denying that primary produce underpins our economic livelihood, right?
Yeah, and Central Plains is a good example of how complex all the issues are. There is no doubt about that. We are 60% dependent on what happens out there in the primary sector. We've got huge tracts of irrigated land that are currently under production. We've got the ability to do more of that. This whole economic crisis that we're going through at the moment we're going to be led out of that by exports of food products. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And if it wasn't for the availability of water to enable all that to happen, we would be in dire straits. So this is a key driver of our economy. It has to be driven in a sustainable way. We have to use the resource responsibly, but there's scope for a whole lot more development yet.
Should there be a maximum amount of water that can be abstracted in any one year, from the region's rivers and groundwater? Is that a feasible option?
Well, that's what regional planning and setting environmental flows is all about for rivers, determining how much water stays in stream to protect fishing, recreational values, ecological health of the waterway, and how much can be allocated for irrigation, and the same in the aquifers in terms of setting the sustainable limit of allocation.
I saw the 14% figure mentioned in the booklet. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, that's 14% of the region's water allocated overall, if you take a total water balance for the region.
Right.
But in some waterways, at the peak of the irrigation season, of course, there's a lot more water allocated and quite significant impacts on the waterways then. So it's important to look at it on a catchment by catchment, aquifer by aquifer basis.
Sure, but it highlights that we have to focus on efficiency and hand in hand with environmental sustainability.
I'll come to city water use in a moment, but first of all, the user pays debate, and a lot of greenies particularly have said industrial dairy farmers, they should be paying full whack for every drop of water they extract. Is that a goer?
Well, I think when we're talking about water charging, we're talking about the cost of delivery, and whether that's in the urban, water metering above a certain, or charging above a certain limit, the farming, for example, they are actually paying now for the cost of delivery. Whether we should put a cost on per litre of water, well, that's a debate that's still to be had.
Is it incorporated into the strategy? Is there scope there for people to...
metering, and of course that has issues around efficiency.
Yeah.
So there's certainly efficiency gained with the effective monitoring and knowledge of what water is being used.
What guarantees can there be for Christchurch people that the aquifers are safe?
Well, obviously, with the regional policy statement, there has been, in the regional plan, provisions controlling land use above the recharge area for the Christchurch aquifer, so that you can't have hazardous substances stored there. So there are already quite significant planning efforts to protect water quality in the aquifers, and then there are the issues that Central Plains raises about the recharge through the Waimakariri River and what impact a 40 cubic take would have on that recharge.
Obviously, there's been a bit of consideration recently from the City Council as to whether there will be, future charging on water beyond a basic entitlement, as you referred to, Bede. Does the strategy enter that debate in any way? How does that correlate with City Council considerations?
Well, apart from the recommendations around efficiency, we don't have the ability to make that recommendation. We hope that the various statutory bodies will buy into that recommendation and consequently lead on to metering and monitoring and a better scientific understanding of the water resource.
There are a couple of fundamental issues there, Mike. The first one is that we have an extraordinarily valuable resource here in Christchurch with our water supply. I mean, we're one of the few cities in the world of our size that has untreated water underground that we can pull straight up for domestic consumption. That's a tremendous asset for the city. The other thing is that we need to ensure that the people of Christchurch do value that resource and that we don't waste it, we don't squander it, because that would be an absolute travesty.
What this debate has also done is highlighted the lack of probably information around our water resources and where those aquifers come from and how they can be protected, as Eugenie just mentioned. So again, we've highlighted the concern around that and what we need to do to protect them.
Okay, just a pipe dream question to finish on. I know there's been a bit of talk recently about this idea of drilling through the Southern Alps and transporting the water from the west coast over to the plains. Do you think that is a possibility for the future?
We've got plenty on this side. It's just not in the right place at the right time.
So we don't have to fleece the west yet?
Not yet.
All right. Now, of course, you have 1 week left to make your views count. Go to the Strategies website, canterburywater.org.nz. There is an electronic version of the booklet available on that website with all the details on how to make a submission, or just call your local council. They will certainly steer you in the right direction. We'll have you back once the strategy has been finalised. That'd be great. Fantastic. Now, before we go, we'll get to the NewsMakers poll. Last week's question was, do you support SAFE's publicity campaign against the pork industry? 71% of you said yes. Hunts Creek will be delighted this weekend. The prize winner is Kay Lukens. This week, we're going to ask you this question. Are you confident the Canterbury Water Management Strategy will lead to the sustainable use of our region's water? Yes or no? You can vote NewsMakers at ctv.co.nz, vote on the web, mikeyardley.com, or post to PO Box 1100 Christchurch. Cast your vote and you'll be in to win Classical 2009, the double CD music compilation, and a Whipped Calls gift card. Thank you very much to our panel, Peter Townsend, Mayor Bede OMalley and Eugenie Sage. A special edition of NewsMakers on Tuesday night with a diversity crusader. Philippe Legrain is with us, Tuesday night, 8:30. Have a good weekend.